Hello, peace everybody. It's been a while since I've done a Facebook Live, but I wanted to pop on today to talk to you human to human. And I'm in a cycle now of the next seasonal planning. And even as I sat down to do the seasonal planning, I even revised the workbook that I use, and it's not even really a workbook anymore, it's a companion. And so that I stay focused and centered, I want to speak from the field notes, meaning my own life. I want to talk to you all today, not about productivity, not about goal setting, not how to squeeze more out of yourself, because I know a lot of us are at the point where we're at capacity. We're at mental, spiritual, and emotional capacity. So seasonal planning is not squeezing more out of yourself. I want to talk about discernment, and I want to talk about timing. And this is why inside this offer, I have a personal numerology report that I'll cultivate for participants and individualized intuitive sessions. Because it's about pattern recognition and getting still enough to where you can hear the voice of the genuine. And I can't take credit for that. That's a Howard Thurman quote, the voice of the genuine. So if you are not familiar with Howard Thurman, he was actually Dr. King's mentor, a noted theologian, and a noted mystic. And so when we are still enough, we can hear the voice of the genuine, but also when we are still, we can also hear the other voices. We can hear the voices of sorrow, regret, grief, anger, sadness. We can hear those voices too. And those voices sometimes get the mic, and those voices can be the loudest. And so it will cause us to busy ourselves and to satiate ourselves in other ways, and in sometimes not very healthy ways. We find ways to cope with the hollow that we may feel on the inside. And so I want to talk about what listening, this type of listening, actually is in this season. Because I think many of us are trying to solve problems in this season in the ways that we've tried to solve problems in previous seasons. And I want to name that there is a difference in how we are being and how we're becoming. And so when we're trying to solve a problem at the deficit of tiredness, of fatigue, of angst, we're not really solving the problem. We're trying to soothe. And so the question for me that started all of this is a few years ago, my mother passed away, and I found myself in the throes of caregiving for a father with dementia. I had to ask myself deeper questions about leadership and grief and purpose and becoming. And today I'm in a very different season. I'm caring for a father. My work is evolving. Relationships have shifted. Some things are ending, and there are things that are emerging. So how do we hold the both and? And I realize we hold it in this way. Honor what is, because there's so much, yes, that is dying away. But this is also what transformation feels like. And I want to name that in many cases, we hear the confessions of the valley at the mountaintop. We don't hear confessions of the threshold, the messy middle, because the messy middle is not pretty, it's not poised, it's not polished. And what I'm realizing is that as I've been listening to a lot of women in leadership, what I've noticed is that, yes, we are launching, launching businesses or launching new initiatives. We are retiring from careers. I know many women who are writing books and giving TED Talks, and I'm so happy to see it. They are rebuilding after loss or during heavy lifts of caretaking. Women are caring for children, parents, communities, organizations. We're stepping into not just bigger leadership roles in our public life, We're stepping into bigger roles in our private life. And so that has to shape and inform the way we do leadership. And the way we're doing leadership now while raising children or simultaneously caregiving. Maybe some of us are leaving partnerships, downsizing, and of course in the face of many catastrophes that we're seeing on the planet, such as the genocide that exists in Palestine and in Tigray, and the anti-Semitism that exists, the persecution, even right here and now as we look at Pride Month, there is a tension here that still exists for the right to exist. Imagine that, we're fighting to exist. And what I want to also name is that I have been watching women like Amanda Treppa, Deanne Austin, and Lakeisha Moore. These are different women, different paths, different assignments, but they all have one thing in common. They want to be the change they want to see in the world, so they're running for public office. And all of them are answering this question: what is this season asking of me? What is this season asking of you? Not what's popular, not what everyone else expects, not what everyone else is doing, because I think this is definitely the season for us to keep our eyes on our own paper. But leadership doesn't begin once someone fills out paperwork or bequeathed with a title. Leadership really begins when no one's looking. What's your code of conduct? What is your behavior? What are you being tapped on the shoulder for? And so this is why most planning fails, because it starts with goals. But seasonal planning actually starts with awareness. Most planning asks, what do I want to accomplish? And accomplishments are great, but seasonal planning asks this question: what is this season asking me to become? And that's a very different question, because sometimes the assignment is growth. And when we think about growth, we think about the expansion, but expansion costs us something. Expansion costs us comfort. A tree grows in two directions at the same time. The roots deep and it reaches upward, and it causes a stretch. And so in that stretch and in that reaching into different directions, this is why growth is uncomfortable. When we think about the arborist and the pruning of branches, right? You have to let go of those things, especially when it's not bearing the fruit. And so seasonal planning, again, becomes about more of what's my growth assignment. And sometimes the assignment is healing. Sometimes the assignment is visibility. Sometimes the assignment is rest. And sometimes the assignment is release. And wisdom comes from knowing the difference. And wisdom also can call for us to be still. This is the season of our lives. Every season has a purpose. Spring is emergence. Summer is expression. Autumn is harvest and discernment. Hey Taryn, how are you? We're talking about seasonal planning, friend, and I would love if you could join us, because we're talking about the seasons. And so winter is reflection and integration. And here's the truth. What is happening in the outside world while we're in this hemisphere in the summer, you could be in a winter. You could be in an autumn. You could be in the actual season of summer. You could be in a spring. But because we're so hurried and busy, we don't have the time. This is an intentional time making for hearing the voice of the genuine. Because the problem in our culture is that we want to live in summer all the time, where we're visible, productive, performing, accomplished. But no ecosystem survives without winter. No ecosystem survives without periods of reflection and slowing down and going inward. That's now how nature operates. And so I think that we need to pay attention to nature, because we need to have a space and time. Good evening, Rhea, how are you? We have to have a space and time to think and to reflect. And that's really the feminine way. So, every 28 days, we shed our lining. We're in sync with the moon. The moon has phases. The moon is full. The moon is crescent. It waxes. It wanes. It governs bodies of water. But here's the thing. The moon isn't out all the time, and nor is the sun. They have their own dance. They have their own cadence. So if the sun is out all the time, when does the earth get a time to cool off? When do the seeds? Yes, wintering. Oh gosh, so powerful. Isn't that powerful? It is so powerful. And I think because we're so removed, and Taryn, that's such a good point. I think because many of us live in concrete metropolises, we are so far removed from nature, except for maybe when we intentionally go to less populated areas, unless we intentionally choose to, go camping or be outdoors. We have lost touch. I mean, even the smell is different when we can pull ourselves into nature and listen to the wisdom of the trees and of the air. It's a really powerful place to be in. And so, yeah. And so your body also craves it, because we also, feed off the negative ions that come off of trees. And when you can put your feet on the earth, that gentle seismic activity can actually help you regulate. It can help your body to regulate. So the real question of the season, and this is what I'm asking all of my feminine leaders, what season are you actually in? Not the season that social media says you should be in. Not the season your peers are in, the season that you're actually in. Because clarity is where we begin. Honest answering is where we begin. And so I created seasonal planning because I believe so many of us are exhausted, and not just physically exhausted, mentally, emotionally, spiritually exhausted. And that's not because we're weak, because we're conditioned to be strong. We're conditioned to take on maybe more than what's required of us. Not because we're failing, we are not failing, is that there's a systems breach. We need a new culture, because our culture has required us to siphon ourselves. The culture has required us to limit the bigger emotions that we have, so that we can all do this in the name of productivity and output. So I'm giving us a permission to stop, to listen to ourselves, to listen to the notes that are coming from our lives, to hear what is emerging, to be contemplative and see what is actually being born next. Because I can tell you wholeheartedly, as much as I love doing my podcast, this season was a bear to record. And I had to stop, and I had to start, and I had to reschedule, and I had to move things around. And that's just, that's just the truth. And even right now, caregivers texting me, we're waiting on me to come home. And yes, I am coming home. I need to finish this transmission, and I will be on my way home. But that's the real life. So, over-functioning. Come on, Rhea. Over-functioning. Just because we're capable or because we can doesn't mean that we should. And I had to learn that lesson very painfully, working on a group project, but that's neither here nor there. Just because you have the capacity, no, not the capacity, the capability. And we're confusing capacity and capability, because there are some seasons where you're capable, but the capacity is not there. And so what participants receive in this is in the seasonal planning companion, that's worth its weight in gold. But a personal numerology reflection you'll get, an intuitive strategy session, and then of course the community conversation, a space to reflect, to discern, and a space to become more yourself. So I'm leaving you with this question. What season are you in actually right now? And what might become possible if you stopped forcing yourself, into the next season without alchemizing your present? What would happen if you started listening to your body and not just the voices in your head? And what would it look like if you could sit at the seat of your heart, where we have the seat of courage, and tended that becoming? So if any of this resonates with you, please join me for seasonal planning. It is happening live on the 25th. The link is here in the comments. Well, actually in the show notes here, but I will also put it in the comments. And I thank you so much for spending this time with me on this live. And I hope sincerely, be gentle with yourself. Listen to your heart. Create a space where you can go for a walk. Center your own silence. You know, if you have to take it at 10 minutes at a time, take it. To just hear what's next. Because we rush so much. And yes, overfunctioning is a thing. So with that, my name is Ber-Henda Williams, founder of Culture Shift Hers Unite, a womanist multimedia platform that focuses on storytelling, placemaking, and communal care. We gather, we tell stories, and we become. So bye for now, and I hope to see you on the 25th. And this will also support, like I said, 3 women, Black women who are running for public office. All right, DM me if you have questions. See you soon.